What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to give you a good overview of what to expect for this upcoming week as far as data points, what might cause a little bit more volatility within Lucid per se, and where things might be going by the end of the week. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. Without further ado, let's get right to it. So Friday, it closed 2.82% in the red, and that is largely because it did fail to get past that 50-day moving average on the technical. So very much consolidation is healthy in this circumstance, so I'm not really too worried in reality. So going into next week though, I still feel that there is a lot of good momentum behind the scenes that could justify it to go higher, especially as well though, there was this that was floating around that I've already kind of touched on in a video, and it even hit the Arab news right here. It says Lucid Motors appoints 𝗪𝗧𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧, I'm not going to butcher his last name, as chairman, and this is as a result of the recent shareholder meeting. So I think there's a lot of big expectation that the PIF potentially could increase their position or at least do some other partnerships to ensure Lucid's success. And this was posted on Twitter by Let's Go Lucid. And as you can see, he is very high up, for instance, at the PIF. So once again, could justify the PIF maybe increasing their position or some other monetary aspect to ensure Lucid's success. So I think this is where a lot of the momentum did start from. Over and above that though, going into next week, there's a lot of big earnings per se, such as Apple and so forth. So in reality, depending on what their future guidance is, that could justify the broader market, and of course will trickle down to, for instance, Lucid. But more specific for Lucid and I guess the broader economy as well, there's a lot of big economic data points coming out, starting with on Wednesday, non-farm employment change. So that is very much linked to consumers. And as I've said in the past, a lot of big institutions are waiting on the sidelines, ready to shout recession religiously, only because they are waiting to find cracks within the consumer aspect. Because as of right now, consumers have been the pillars that have been holding up the economy, as I've said in the past. So I think this one is going to be a very heavily scrutinized one potentially. And then of course later in the afternoon on Wednesday is going to be the Fed's interest rate decision. As of right now, I do feel that the consensus is that it's going to be a 25 basis point increase. So depending on what happens from that and Powell's decision and his I guess conference after that, that could result in definitely a lot of ripples within the economy. Over and above that, on Friday there is once again another consumer very much linked one, and that is non-farm payroll. So like I said, that is something and things to really watch going into next week that could cause a little bit more volatility. Even more so near the end of the week, I see a little bit more FOMO kicking in as far as the May 8th upcoming earnings. And I still do believe that prior to this earnings, they are going to disclose their actual gravity. So unveil the gravity per se. So I think the event is going to happen after the earnings, but they're going to tentatively unveil it as far as specs and so forth. So I could be very much wrong. I am not a financial advisor. You guys do your own due diligence at the end of the day. And my reasoning why I believe that, historically, Lucid has always done a very big PR 1 or 2 weeks prior to the earnings, so they can use that as a talking point. So this is why I feel that they are going to be at least having additional PR for the gravity, most likely this week. So once again, let me know you guys' thoughts on that in the comments below. When it comes down to it though, I have noticed that there's been a lot of good changes on Lucid's website. And of course, even looking at the events tab, you see that they are starting to do a lot more pop-ups as well. So I think this is a fairly good thing. And like I've mentioned in the past, Jeff Curry, who hasn't been the best or wasn't the best because he's no longer with Lucid, I feel that whoever has been hired for their marketing and to update their website is doing a fairly good job. So you can kind of see all the Dream Ahead tour. Unfortunately, even on Twitter and things like that, I'm not really seeing that much PR or pictures from that, as much as I would like to see at least. But you never know, that could potentially change, and it does look like they are in Atlanta this upcoming week. So once again, depending on if there's some good PR, that might result in something very positive. So overall, that's a lot of the data points that you need to know, at least that could influence the price of Lucid behind the scenes. I'll go over some other data points, like I said, that'll kind of roll into next week, starting with shorts. So when it comes down to shorts have been always a very big pain in Lucid's back. Short score is currently 90, utilization is at 100%, but I think it's been at 100% for a while. On Friday, they did reduce 1.79 million shares of their position. Still though, 149.04 million shares being shorted, and that works out to be 23.25% of the overall free float being shorted. Cost to borrow average did drop a little bit, but still relatively high, so 73.17%. And as you can see here, cost to borrow max is 268%. So behind the scenes, as I've said in the past, Lucid does have everything on paper to have a very good squeeze. The only thing that they've already missed and have typically missed on is a very good surprise catalyst. And in reality, I think the gravity might be that potentially, because I think a lot of people are still very much speculating on how much this will cost. And for instance, if Lucid comes out and says it is, let's say, $80,000, I feel that would be a huge success, massive success, and that would cause a little bit more of a squeeze. But keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. You guys do your own due diligence at the end of the day. So when it comes to it though, going into next week, with it being at $7.94 and the technicals and so forth, some points to really watch for is $8.13. So it kind of bounced off of that range-ish potentially, so it wasn't enough to get above that. No different than what I just pointed out previously about that 50-day moving average. And Lucid itself has always really struggled with that damn 50-day moving average for a while. So with some good data coming out and potentially, like I said, FOMO kicking in, I do feel that there is a lot of good justification for it to trend higher. And keep in mind, if it does break past these 2 points, so the 50 and 100-day moving averages, then it can go up very fast. So in reality, given the circumstances and things like that, and given that stochastic is currently at around 51, so fairly neutral in that regard, I do feel that in reality, it can get to around the $9 range going into the actual earnings. Because like I said, there's going to be a lot of good FOMO kicking in. There's going to be a lot of those data points coming out as well. So I do feel around the $9 range is very much a good target to potentially have for the end of the week. But of course, like I've already said, I could be very much wrong. Sometimes my crystal ball isn't always on point, but based on the technicals, the momentum being had behind the scenes, I do feel that a lot of people are starting to look at Lucid per se as a good value play, because a lot of other companies, for the most part, are having surprisingly good earnings. And I think that was a little bit more of an eye-opening thing from the institutional standpoint, because a lot of people were assuming that the higher interest rates and inflation was going to affect a lot of earnings, but hasn't been the case so far. So this is where, once again, I do feel that you're going to get a little bit more of a FOMO near the end of the week, causing it to go up in reality. But once again, let me know you guys' thoughts on all of this in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.